All right, guys, our next guest is a professor when it comes to MMA analysis. You can see his PhD-worthy work on BT Sport with the Dan Hardy Breakdown Show, and of course his channel, Full Reptile. Kind enough to join us to preview UFC 283 just quickly. The one and only Dan Hardy, welcome back. Happy New Year. How are you, man?
I'm really good, man. Really good. It's been a good year so far, and I hope it's the same for you guys.
Yeah.
Well, dude, let's talk about UFC 283, because when you look at the hilarious circus-like antics that led the UFC to putting this title on in the first place, not to take anything away from Jamahal or Glover, who's an absolute legend, but it was such an accidental last-minute turn of events that led to this being a title fight. I just got to get your reaction before we even talk about this fight on the light heavyweight division and the state of this fight being put together.
Yeah, it's a bit of a sometimes the matchmaking and the decision making just seems a little bit like we desperately need to put a belt around someone's waist at the end of this event, regardless. And this is where we get interim titles coming from, or I mean, this you can't say that they're not deserving of it, because the position that they put themselves into. I mean, Teixeira's former champ, and I do feel like it's early in Jamahal Hill's career for a title shot, and I do feel like the best light heavyweight in the division won't be the champ at the end of the event, but that doesn't take anything away from either of the guys. I think that it's a promotional thing, isn't it? I mean, the UFC is a promotion. It's there to promote, and it's easier to promote someone wearing a belt and then losing that belt to somebody else than the belt just kind of floating around. So it'd be interesting to see how this one plays out, because we know what Glover Teixeira does. He just mauls people with fundamentals, and given the fact that it's so early in Jamahal Hill's career, I'm not sure he's quite ready for someone like Glover. But we'll see.
Does it still work? The belts?
Say that again.
The belts in the UFC, these interim belts, these constant title fights. Do you think they still work? I only bring this up because whenever I talk to my friends outside of the MMA bubble, the casual fans, they don't know who half of the UFC champions even are anymore.
I'm not a fan of interim belts at all. I think there are certain circumstances where you can create an interim belt, of course, if the champion is injured but is definitely intending on coming back to compete and defend the belt. But there should always be a cutoff. I think there should always be a cutoff. And sometimes interim belts are created to pressure the person who's got the championship, which I don't like.
Yeah.
That's sometimes how it's used against the champions, which I think is, well, first of all, it makes the belt kind of dirty as it is. And second of all, I think, like, say for example, like, Moreno Figueiredo, co-main event. Like, I don't care that Moreno's the interim champ. I don't care that he was the interim champ after beating Kai Kara-France. It made no difference to me whatsoever. It doesn't make him any more worthy of fighting Figueiredo a fourth time. They didn't need to give him the interim championship. You know what I mean? The intention was for Figueiredo to come back. It's been 12 months. I think if it had been 14 months, maybe, but just my thoughts. I do think they dilute it, and I've said this to you guys before, I'm sure. I wouldn't mind an interim belt if it was a different color. You can't be hanging a gold belt around the second in the division. Like, make it bronze or something. You know what I mean? Give it a different tint.
Imagine getting a bronze belt. People will be like, yeah, I don't know, take it back. But I will say, there's a certain feel good thing about this belt, just from the perspective of Glover Teixeira, because when he got, I wouldn't say screwed over, but they made the title fight without him. If you're Glover, you're like, dude, are you serious? And then you think if he's ever going to get another title shot. I know there was talks about him facing the winner, but this situation could have gone such a different way for Glover. We all know sometimes people get screwed over purely by the circumstance. So to see Glover get another title shot at this stage of his career is kind of a feel good moment. And man, here's the fascinating thing about Jamahal Hill, right? He was on Ariel's show and he spoke about how his biggest fear was if he never got a chance to sort of find out if he's good enough to fight for the belt. And so the fact that he's going to be at this fight once the cage door closes, he'll be happy because he will get his answer. Win or lose, he will get his answer. I'm just curious, as a fighter, what you think about that kind of mindset. I thought it was fascinating, but do you see it as an advantage or disadvantage, him coming into the fight like that?
I think it's an advantage because it will give him confidence that he's arrived there. It will give him confidence that he's found himself in a position where he's, you know, he's earned that opportunity. You know, he's the main event. He's fighting the former champion as well. So it's not like he's fighting someone or someone else that's never been a champion. Like, if he beats Glover Teixeira, who was recently the champion, it will be a very validating thing for Jamahal Hill. I also, you know, I mean, what is he, 12 fights into his career, 11-1. This is by far the beginning of his career. I think he's 31. You know, you look at Glover Teixeira, who 10 years ago was fighting Rampage Jackson.
Yeah.
You know, it's wild. You know, I wouldn't be surprised at all. I mean, imagine you add another 8 years onto Jamahal Hill's career, and he ends up at 39 years old. He would be like an Andrei Arlovsky kind of Alistair Overeem with that amount of UFC experience at that point. He's got a long career ahead of him. I think this is going to be a real lesson for him, to be honest, against Glover Teixeira. My one concern is that Glover always gets clipped hard, right? He always gets hurt and he always gets dropped. And the thing that overrides is the fact that he's able to kind of almost like a zombie, get his hands on his opponent, drag him down, mount him and beat him up until they turn their back. But there's a point when that runs out, right? There's a point when you get hit with that shot and you don't just kind of zombie up into a double leg. There's a point when you land face down and you lose the fight. And Jamahal Hill's got big power in both of his hands, and he's very, very good with his kicking range as well. You know, picking at people as they plod forward. And we know what Glover's like. He can be quite predictable in his movement. I feel like there's going to be a point when Glover Teixeira's luck with his chin and his recovery and his ability to overcome is going to run out. And you know, you've got to think he's in his early 40s now. It's probably approaching.
Well, yeah, I was just about to ask you your thoughts on Jamal's power and ability to finish the fight, and the fact that Glover's coming in with likely that game plan. I want to sort of look at it from the perspective of Jamal and what you think he needs to do to win this one, because we know Glover's going to try and withstand those shots and get that takedown, use his experience to finish it. And also, when you look at this, who you're actually leaning towards winning it?
Well, you know, if you look back at one of Jamahal Hill's fights when he was under pressure by someone shorter and stockier, the Stoicic fight is a really good one to research, because he was, you know, 9 takedowns were attempted in that fight, and it wasn't Stoicic's main game plan. He really wanted to strike with him, but because he was struggling with the range, he ended up grappling, took him down 6 times, but wasn't really able to control him very well. Now, you know, if you look at that fight, there were a lot of things that Hill did really well in it. Striking, moving backwards, which I think is going to be wise, because if he starts too fast and he moves into Glover's range, he's going to be body locked up against the fence and on his back before he knows it. If he's smart and he's patient and he's moving backwards, he's going to force Glover Teixeira to start walking him down. And Glover's got good footwork, but he isn't as fast as Hill, and he is quite square on when he's standing. Big fan of Mike Tyson, isn't he? He likes that peekaboo style. So that front kick up the midsection and that chopping kick to the lead leg is going to be really, really problematic for him. And, you know, as you said, you know, Hill's got power in both hands. You know, we saw his check hook against Jimmy Crute. We saw his overhand left against Johnny Walker. He's a power puncher, but because he's so relaxed and because he's quite happy to give ground and use his reach advantage, that could be really, really difficult for Glover to deal with. It could look a lot like the Gustafsson fight, to be honest. And the one technique that keeps coming to mind that I'm watching out for is that front kick up the midsection. You know, you think Lyoto Machida, Randy Couture, the snap front kick to the chin, that for me would be an ideal target for Jamahal Hill, and that rear snap kick that he's got. You know, work the body a bit, and then go up to the head, because Glover is so square. It all comes down to how he takes that first shot. You know, I remember recording the Thiago Santos Teixeira War Room, and it all comes down to how he takes that big shot, because at some point, Hill is going to land a big shot, and Glover either gets back up and wins, or he doesn't get back up. And so far, we've seen him get back up and win. You know, I mean, what he did to Yuri Prochazka was really impressive. Even more impressive was what Prochazka was able to turn around in the end. But it doesn't take away from the fact that Glover is able to endure big shots and still land on his fundamentals and beat some of the best fighters in the world. It comes down to whether he can take that big shot. And the more I think about it, the more I'm kind of feeling like a 43-year-old Glover Teixeira might be a little bit too susceptible to the power of Hill. I'm leaning a bit in his direction. But, I'm not at all going to be bothered if my pick's wrong and he ends up, mauling him down to the floor and teaching the young man a lesson, because it gives us old guys a bit of hope. But I just feel like that ability to absorb and overcome is going to run out soon for Glover, and Hill is the kind of person to test it.
I feel like also training with Alex Pereira is something that's keeping Glover in the game in a way where you're able to test yourself against someone who's an incredible power puncher and kind of keep your body in that kind of state, of conditioning where you're able to sort of deal with that kind of crazy power. So I wonder if you can sort of take some of that into the fight with them, Cass.
Yeah, that's a very good point. I mean, if you're training and sparring with Alex Pereira, you definitely got to keep yourself sharp, keep yourself elusive. Because if Alex Pereira even looks at you the wrong way, you're getting dropped in a major way. Speaking of dropping, don't drop the ball on your balls in 2023. New year, new me. And let's be honest, boys, it's going to be the best year for you and all of us here and all the friends at Manscaped. Some 6 million men around the world shaving their sack and making yourself the best man you can possibly be. Get the Manscaped Platinum Package 4.0, which is the best value and the best product, including the Lawnmower 4.0 trimmer with its LED light, the ceramic blade, the skin-safe technology you've all come to love, the waterproof features so you can smash it out like us in the shower and then just chuck it on the wireless charging dock and move on with your life because, of course, you're a busy man. The Weed Whacker ear and nose hair trimmer for all those bloody nose and ear hairs. The Ultra Premium Body Wash, the Ultra Premium 2-in-1 shampoo and conditioner, Ultra Premium deodorant, Crop Preserver anti-chafing ball deodorant, the Crop Reviver ball spray toner, and the free gifts, the boxes and the Shed travel bag. Especially here in summer, it's freaking hot. Yesterday was 37 degrees. You don't want to be having a bush down there. You want to be shedding all that hair for the summer, or even in the winter if you're ever in the States or Canada, like our good friends. Isn't that right, Dennis?
Yeah, that's right, man. I had a friend's engagement party yesterday, shaved the old beard off in about 2 seconds thanks to the lawnmower, was charged up and ready to go, could use it in the shower. This thing is amazing, and you can use it for anything that you need, from trimming that beard to trimming that bush. It is absolutely a necessity, and you guys can get 20% off and free shipping now if you use the code word submission. Go to Manscaped right now and get that summer going thanks to Manscaped. And guys, UFC 283 right around the corner and some big fights that we're breaking down with Dan here, but there's no need to break down where to go to make all your bets and make all your money, because our friends at MyBookie are giving you guys 100% match deposit with a code word submission. All you got to do is use that promo code submission to claim your deposit dollar for dollar, all the way up to 1,000 bones. I mean, MyBookie is the only sportsbook that gives you skin in the game and help you picks the wins with dozens of predictions from real UFC fighters to make the most informed bet that you can. There's just no doubt about it. You guys could bet anything, anytime, anywhere with the code word submission and our friends at MyBookie, Cass.
By the way, how annoying is it when you go to watch a simple highlights of something on Twitter, or you go to, say, BT Sport because you want to watch the Dan Hardy breakdown show, or BT Sports excellent coverage of boxing or MMA, and then it tells you oh, sorry, the uploader hasn't made this available in your country, or this content can't be played in your country, or whatever the case is. Freaking geo-blocking does my head in. The easiest way around that is with a VPN like NordVPN. Trick your computer to thinking that you're exactly in that country that they want you or don't want you to be in. Also, the VPN, you block trackers. You block anybody from seeing what websites you're on because of your IP address. Even your internet service provider cannot follow or know what websites, what spicy websites you are going on. And the best thing is you go on streaming websites like a Netflix or something, you change your geolocation, bang, now you got all sorts of different movies and TV shows from different countries. You can even use a VPN to get stuff cheaper, because obviously the same products cost different prices depending on which country you're on. Flights, the same exact flights cost different things depending on what country your computer thinks you're in. So NordVPN, man, saving you bones this 2023. Isn't that right, Dennis?
That's right, man. And one NordVPN account can be used up to 6 devices. So you guys get on there today and get this exclusive NordVPN deal, which is available right now at nordvpn.com/submission, or click the link in the description below. You get a huge discount off your NordVPN plan, plus a bonus gift, and it's completely risk-free with Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee. So there's no better time to try it than today. One of the best apps in the business to try NordVPN and get browsing all that amazing content all around the world.
That's right. Glover Teixeira versus Jamahal Hill. Then there's obviously the UFC's first ever quadrilogy between Deiveson Figueiredo and Brandon Moreno, like you mentioned before, Dan. Honestly, not a bad fight to go with if you're going to make 4 of them for the first time ever. But what is crazy, right, is that Moreno was so close to getting it done last time. You would think, okay, you make some adjustments, let's see how we go. But now, as he's preparing and making tweaks, the whole James Krause situation happens. And so his coach is out, James Krause is out, and then in comes, for the biggest fight of his life, you got to do a bit of a reset. But he's gone with Saif Saad of Fortis MMA, who I like a lot, man. He's actually a brilliant mind, for the sport in general. How do you think this affects things in the rematch, Dan?
I don't think it affects things too much, focusing on the Moreno camp and everything that's going on there. I don't think it changes too much. I mean, from what I understand, his game plan was pretty much set, moving over to Saif Saud. And as you said, Saif is a real fantastic mind. He's taken over the breakdown show for the UFC, and he's doing a brilliant job over there. And I think that, any expansion of the knowledge in his corner is going to be a benefit. There's probably a lot of good information that Moreno got from Krause, and there's going to be a bit more good information that he's going to get from Saif Saud before the fight. That's all a huge benefit. It would be interesting to see if there was any kind of disagreement on the game plan and the approach, but that obviously, we probably won't find out until after or maybe never. But it's really interesting, because if you look at the way that this saga's kind of played out, the first fight, Moreno lost that on the scorecards, but it was a draw because of the point deduction. So Figueiredo won that one 3-2 on 2 of the scorecards. But then the second one, Moreno just looked like a different beast entirely, and Figueiredo didn't look himself. And then the third fight was a lot more competitive, absolutely. But still, if you look at the last fight and the first fight, Moreno's only won 1 round apiece on all 3 scorecards, right? He won the 4th round on all scorecards in the first fight, and the 2nd round on all scorecards in the 3rd fight. So what that tells me is that there's always one judge that can be leaning towards Figueiredo for one reason or another. And I think, to be honest, it's because of the power difference. Like, I know that Moreno was able to catch him and tag him and, dropped him in the second fight and rocked him with those overhands, etc., etc. There's been moments where Moreno has been able to hurt and seemingly damage Figueiredo. But the difference with Figueiredo, with everything he throws, those calf kicks, the body kicks that damage the forearm and the shoulder, he's just an overly powerful individual for this weight class. And that's something that Moreno's always got to manage and negate in order to try and win the rounds. And, like we saw on the scorecards, apart from the second fight, if we take the first and the third fight, they've done 10 rounds and Moreno's won 2 of those rounds. Figueiredo's won 5 of them, and the other 3 were split. It seems to me like the judges can feel the power of Figueiredo through the fence, and it's more impactful on the scorecards than Moreno's work rate and accuracy.
So as we wrap, what kind of adjustments do you think Moreno needs to make in this one as we go into the 4th? And I mean, do you think Figueiredo gets it done in this one? When you think about it, who are you leaning towards?
I'm leaning towards Figueiredo. I feel like the power difference is going to be evident, and I think lessons have been learned from the first, second, and third fights that when you apply that power and that, I mean, the truth is they're both such emotional individuals. Like, Figueiredo is constantly trying to maintain his composure. You know what I mean? Like, you look at the second fight and he spent 3.5 minutes kind of moving away and throwing weird kicks, and then he got caught with a shot and dropped. Like, in the first fight, he was way too aggressive. He started with a spinning back kick, then he was straight in, hands down, throwing overhands. So it's like the third fight, it's kind of like he found the right intensity for that, but you could see he was struggling to manage it all the way through. He's waiting just for the moment to explode. I feel like if you take the lessons that Figueiredo's got, he's got to do damage early, calf kicks and body kicks to the arms, anything that he can do to damage and slow Moreno down would be ideal. I also like the fact that he's integrated counter wrestling like Moreno was in the first and second fight, which played out really well for him. So, using that counter wrestling still, but also, maintaining his composure, not going winging in with big power shots and flurries when he knows full well that Moreno's going to try and take him down. And for Moreno, don't take too much damage early. That damage will stay with you through the 25 minutes, and wrestle quickly, wrestle soon. Get into body locks as quickly as you can, because he's always had good success with those body lock takedowns against Figueiredo. And Figueiredo scrambles wild. He turns his back when he scrambles. Of course, we've seen that from the second fight where he got choked out. But consistently, he gives his back when he scrambles. The guillotine that he caught Alex Perez in, he kind of did like a commando roll through and then caught him in a guillotine. There are moments where Moreno, I feel, can get into the fight. And the more times he makes Figueiredo do that, the more tired he's going to get and the slower he's going to be in those reactions. It's fast hands and wrestling for Moreno. It's powerful kicks and patience for Figueiredo. And I'm leaning slightly more towards Figueiredo just based on the fact that he can accumulate way more damage at a shorter rate than Moreno can, which breaks my heart because, I like Moreno and he's a fellow Lego collector. So I really feel like I should be siding with him. But Figueiredo is he's a beast. And, he's the most winning fighter out of the two of them. If you look at the first and third fights when they've been the most competitive, I just, Moreno was perfect in the second fight and Figueiredo was just way off. And that's why I feel like we got that outcome. And it may be the best performance of Moreno's career and may always be the best performance of his career. Figueiredo is just a wrecking ball. He's a terrifying individual.
I can't wait. Here's to another 4 more after this one. Some fun fights on the card, man. You've obviously got Gilbert Burns and Neil Magny, Andrade and Lauren Murphy, Paul Craig and Johnny Walker, Shogun's final fight ever. So there's some fun stuff for UFC 283. Follow the man on Twitter and Instagram at Dan Hardy MMA. Of course, the channel Full Reptile. Subscribe if you're not already. The Dan Hardy Breakdown Show on BT Sport, The War Room, and his book Part Reptile. Dan, as always, thank you so much for your time and insight. Always love chatting with you.
Anytime, guys. Always good talking to you.